Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Benchwarmer Sports podcast. I'm Raffi, as always, joined by Davian and Theodore. Boys, this weekend was a monumental occasion for, the Super Bowl, but also I had the honor of meeting Theodore, who came to the University of Illinois. I promise I'm from Illinois. I've lived there my whole life. But Theodore was great getting to hang out with you. Theodore is tall, as Davian has said before. But yeah, before we get into the Super Bowl, it's nice seeing you both again virtually. And how are things?
Well, everything's going great right now, Raffi. Yeah, it was really fun getting to actually meet you in person after, over 2 years of doing this podcast. I got very good fried chicken sandwich and champagne with Raffi. Beats the chicken in Alabama, which was absolutely shocking to me. I was there for some wheelchair basketball. Bama dominated the weekend. And, yeah, I really can't complain about anything on that front.
Okay, so I do have one question, Theodore. Am I taller than Raffi? Because clearly I am.
Well, look, okay, so, Davian, for those of you who don't know, is a very tall young man. You stand at what?
6'4".
5'13", 5'11",
Yeah.
But you know what's taller?
5'11".
His personality. His personality is something that really has no limitation.
Right, yeah, you can't put a number on that,
Yeah.
But, yeah, now, all jokes aside, Raffi is a very normally heighted person, so.
Normally,
That's all.
I'm
like
5'10". I'm 5'10", so that kind of does check out by like the average
Perfectly
height
average.
of a man.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Hey, nothing with being undersized. Being wrong with being undersized either.
Yeah, right. I mean, look, Chris Paul, undersized,
Mooksy
Brees.
Gotta have that dog in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kyle
Davian,
Murray, undersized.
how are
Well, maybe
things?
that's not the best example.
You're not talking about that guy.
I'm good. Watched the Super Bowl. Did not gamble. I did have 17 bets that I did place, but did not gamble.
Uh-huh.
Of the 17, 11 of those hit, including the over for the national anthem, which was the scariest thing because the only reason why the over hit was because she sang the word brave twice, and when she sang it the second time, my watch party went absolutely nuts because they knew I was the only one who was dumb enough to actually place the over for the national anthem, and it hit. So I'm very happy with that.
Let me just remind y'all, I got a text. I believe it was Saturday night from Davian. Do I take the over on the national anthem? Now look, I'm an employee of SEC Network. I'm not allowed to gamble. I did not gamble on this game.
He did not
But
gamble. I can confirm.
when people need, my knowledge, I'm there. I said, look, you look at Reba McEntire's best performances.
Yep.
He stretches it out. It's the
Yep.
Super Bowl. He's going to want to elongate it. And,
I trusted the wizard here, man. How could I
basically
not?
what I'm hearing is you should have actually gambled, Davian, because he won 11 out of 17.
Exactly, I should have, but
You'll get him next time.
we do not gamble here at the Benchwarmer.
We do not gamble.
I just
do
want
not
to say
support
personally, the prop bets are ridiculously stupid. I saw one person
But they're
getting
so
upset
fun.
because they lost $10,000 on the national anthem bet, and personally, I'm just like it's your fault for betting $10,000 on something dumb like that. You did they did all this research, all this. I sound like an absolute boomer here, but I'm just saying, I'm just not.
Rafi, you're just
I
mad
just don't
that
get
you
it.
lost thousands of dollars. You're the one who placed
No,
$10,000 on
only
that.
bets on Connor Bedard. He's like
That's true.
civilized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gambles.
Speaking
on
of Connor Bedard, he's expected to return next week. The Blackhawks have scored 2 and 3 goals in the last 2 games. So when Connor Bedard comes back, oh boy, they'll be averaging 4 goals a night. Hopefully they won't be, but you know what? It'll be much more entertaining hockey. So that's all I care about as Theodore dozes off to sleep. That's how I feel whenever I watch a Blackhawks game because normally they just get shut out. That's a whole another thing that we'll get into on another podcast. But let's get into the Super Bowl. So obviously we started off with a little bit of the gambling talk, a little bit with the national anthem. Boys, personally, I'm just going to take it from here. Kyle Shanahan, I feel bad. I know you'd expect as a Falcons fan I would be laughing at him losing again and blowing another double-digit lead. But at some point, you just kind of feel bad for the guy.
Yeah.
This game, I didn't really care who won. I didn't really have a horse. I was like, if either team wins, I'm fine with that. But I just feel bad for Kyle Shanahan.
I would feel bad,
I would too.
but it's also just really, really funny
It is.
that he keeps blowing double-digit leads. It's hard not to laugh at.
Yeah, I'm gonna also add on. You know, Kyle Shanahan likes doing this thing where when he has a really good running back, to just shut him down in the second half of the game. Prime Devontae Freeman was shut down against the Patriots back in the infamous Super Bowl when they're up 25 points. And then again, CMC was barely used, I felt, in the second half. And so just really, I think it's just a poor play calling in some part by Kyle Shanahan. Also, why not let Brock Purdy sling the rock a bit? Let him get those deep balls to Debo Samuel. None of that was used. It was always these short mesh dump off passes. I'm sorry. Let this man cook, and he just did not, and that's why the Chiefs came out on top at the end of the day.
Let me
And
just
the lack
say,
of George Kittle involvement was also very clear, and it felt like he didn't really utilize Christian McCaffrey to its fullest extent.
yeah,
Theodore.
yeah. What I'm gonna say is, I think this was Kyle Shanahan's worst overall Super Bowl. Like,
Agreed. Yeah.
obviously, you would have liked to handle something better, when you blow a 28-3 lead. But I think in 2019, he had a pretty good game. But this offensive game plan was just so head scratching. Like Davian said, and I don't necessarily agree with Davian in that he should have had Brock Purdy slinging the ball more, but he should have committed to something. Like, if you're not going to have Purdy slinging the ball, it should be because you're just going to ride McCaffrey all game, and that is not what happened. McCaffrey was so underutilized. Look, the Chiefs have this year been very solid against tight ends, and I think it's not the worst thing in the world that Kittle had, a slow night, but it's just you didn't get your receivers downfield, which would have been okay if you were, having McCaffrey go for 160 all-purpose yards like we know he could have. You know, all around, it was just a very head-scratching game at times. With that being said, it's so easy to see, obviously, how the Niners could have won that game. So it's hard. Like, you don't know how much to critique Shanahan. You don't know how much this falls on him. I just think there's a lot of stuff in hindsight he could have done differently.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and obviously there was a couple of fumbles too. Like obviously McCaffrey fumbled on the first drive of the game, so that was obviously a big momentum killer for
So
them.
did the Chiefs.
And the muffed
Yeah,
punt,
and I
too.
think the big thing too, that as well, right? I think the main thing though is, and Davian's gonna perk his ears up when I say this. I think Patrick Mahomes has entered that Tom Brady echelon where
No, he
no
hasn't.
lead, no time, it doesn't matter.
Stop. No.
Patrick Mahomes is officially inevitable. It doesn't matter. He will
Okay,
come back.
no.
He will.
I'm
be
going to
back.
Okay,
so
I
disagree with this.
thought-
Mahomes is good, don't get me wrong, but the 49ers defense at the end of the game was absolutely gassed, okay? You could have put me in that situation. I probably could have led the Chiefs down the field. Yes, Patrick Mahomes is good. Yes, he is elite. Yes, he is the best quarterback in the league right now. That is undeniably true. But to put him in the conversation with Tom Brady is ridiculous. Brady had to wait for years to be put in the conversation with Joe Montana. And after that conversation with Joe Montana, he was put in the same conversation with Peyton Manning. It has to be the same type of treatment for all players. I don't care if the media is putting more of a focus on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs because of Taylor Swift, but Mahomes needs to prove himself. Yes, 3 Super Bowls in 5 years is insane, and I give him a lot of credit for that. And yes, he is on the right track to potentially surpass or be as good as Tom Brady. But to say he is better than Tom Brady or in the same league as Tom Brady is still, I cannot argue for that.
No. Okay.
Peter, I'll let you take this real quick, but I just want to mention too, Davian, that we all know that you're lying about you being able to lead a drive down the field because you could not see over any of the offensive linemen. Theodore.
Yes.
That's not even fair, bro.
Okay. So back on track. Look, I think I think the point Raffi was trying to make was not necessarily about like his all-time standing as a QB, but more so the fact about game never being over when Mahomes is in it.
Yes, exactly.
It's
That's what I
just
was
you
going
look at
for.
what he's done, like 24-0 versus the Texans. A couple years ago, that was the big one. That was the first one where he just completely turns that game around. You're like, okay, this is just such an incredible guy. 10-point comeback in the fourth quarter of that 2019 Niners game. This one where I think he gets the ball with a minute or right around 2 minutes left. Was there really any doubt in your mind, Davian, that he would lead that team down the field and at least tie the game?
No,
Do you question that?
I had no doubt of him being able to lead the ball down the field.
Exactly, and that's to me why he is already in the pantheon of all-time great QBs. I think you can, man, outside of Brady, Manning, Montana, who else are you putting over this?
I mean, in terms of like being able to lead the game, end of the drive, all time.
I'm just talking.
I'm thinking like
all-time
Drew Brees would be
greatest
able to do
QBs. Drew Brees.
I love Drew Brees, but
Well,
I'm
yeah,
taking
I'm
Patrick
taking Mahomes
Mahomes
over
any
Brees
day
over
over
any
Drew
day.
Brees. And I love Drew Brees.
I think you'd make the case for
Yeah.
a guy like Elway.
Potentially, yeah.
you can-
I just think it's Patrick Mahomes is just, and again too, I think many people and Freezing Cold Takes had this perfectly at the perfect time. The Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill 2 years ago,
Yeah,
and the fact that like obviously Rashid Rice has been a revelation this year for the Chiefs, and obviously you have Travis Kelce as well. But the way Patrick Mahomes is able to make that offense, and we all, and especially me, like I'll spearhead this. I was one of the main critics for the Chiefs, where I was like, this does not look like the Kansas City Chiefs team that we normally see in the regular season or just in general. They kind of just like have the whole season. They were like, okay, it doesn't really matter. But the moment the playoffs, the lights came on, they're like, okay, we got this. Boom.
yeah.
I'm just really impressed with how he was able to make so much happen with really a lack of resources per se. And I'm sorry to say that to Kadarius Toney. But
No, that's
Don't apologize
kinda
for that,
true.
man. Although actually, you probably should because he will go on Instagram Live and tag us and all that, which would not be fun.
right, we can't have any
Um,
siblings of
and-
players ripping us on Instagram.
One more point on Mahomes, and because look, I personally believe that he would have to win, no matter what. Patrick Mahomes would have to win at least 7 Super Bowls to have a shot at being considered the GOAT.
yes, yeah,
Right?
yes.
Especially considering the fact that Brady beat him head to head.
Also, I think
I think that
longevity.
shouldn't
I think
be a
that's
hot
big
take.
thing. I wanted because Mahomes' play style
Right.
is very much like look. Brady was always the type of guy stands in the pocket, throws the ball, gets it done. Mahomes is a guy who I don't feel like he has a very long career, just physically body wise, right? Unless he's doing some Tom Brady like regiment
Yeah,
training. I don't see anybody. I don't see Mahomes. I don't see this new QB, these new QBs playing up until into their 40s, and that's why I think when we talk about the NFL draft in the next few weeks, age is a factor to a certain extent because yes, these guys can play into their 30s, but how late into their 30s? How long can they play before they get injured?
Okay, so I get your point there, Davian. What you got to remember, when Brady entered the league, first of all, you got to realize how far
That's
medicine
true.
has come in the past 20 years and how far it will continue to advance. Second of all, you got to look at the rules right now. I mean, it's just crazy. And I've been saying this for a while that I think QBs are too protected, but it is absolutely a strength for Mahomes. One more thing on this while we're kind of talking about Brady, or 2 more things actually. You got to remember, first of all, Tom Brady, and Belichick, the greatest dynasty of all time, went a full decade. They won 3 Super Bowls and then went a full
Correct.
decade without
Yes.
winning one. There's just like, we all seem to forget that. There's a 10-year gap of
Yeah, there is.
the Patriots not winning it. And then we also remember that Andy Reid is, 66 years old now. And I think it's a pretty safe assumption that, Mahomes will finish his career with a new coach. Like, you can see a gap like that happening. The one thing I'll say,
Yeah.
and I got to give Mahomes credit for this, it's like been announced he will be taking, like, restructuring his contract, like taking pay cuts. It's clear to me that he's a guy who right now is going to do whatever it takes to keep winning Super Bowls. And you have to respect that.
Yeah.
And I
I'm
think the key thing too is how these quarterbacks are able to transition. As you guys said, like a lot of quarterbacks will be really mobile to start their career, but then they kind of struggle moving into more of a passing pocket passer type quarterback as you get older. I think Patrick Mahomes is potentially one of those outliers where he can effortlessly,
Yeah.
I think that's how you probably say that word, transition into being more of a pocket passer in the future. And again, not every quarterback's going to be able
Lamar's
to
on
do
the
that, but Patrick
Lamar's
Mahomes
better
is
than
just,
that.
I mean, not to
He
say
is.
this, but like
Yeah.
he's just
Lamar
built
Jackson, I
different.
think,
He's
is very
quite
similar
literally
to
built
Mahomes
different,
in
and
that type of play style. I think that Lamar's just like a few, like he's a few levels still behind. Like he's just not there yet in terms of being able to really, throw the ball well deep downfield. Well, just throw the ball well and be a good passer. I think he relies on the run too much. Yeah, go ahead, Theodore.
And the
Exactly.
playoff argument is also like this man clearly has shied away in some of the bigger moments.
yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts on the Super Bowl? Obviously, a lot happened. Dre Greenlaw with just
Injury.
a
Yeah.
horrific, awful injury. I think it was a torn Achilles too. And the worst thing is not like because obviously that's terrible in general, but to not even get like it wasn't even a play. He was
Yeah.
just about to run onto the field for a drive after a punt, and you wonder too in a game that close.
It is.
Is
I
him
think it
playing in
was.
that game? He's such a big aspect of the Niners defense. Does that change the outcome? Obviously, we'll never know, but that was also something that I thought
Yeah.
stood out. That obviously was just terrible to see.
Let me say one more thing on the topic because first of all, that injury was horrific. Like, and it sucks because just imagine you're just casually running and that thing pops. Like, man, that is scary. Um, the one thing I want to say, and it's weird with how much everyone's been flaming the Chiefs to go out and defend them this much. Like, personally, I don't care either way. I don't see any reason to hate the Chiefs, but can we stop acting like Travis
he really
Kelce murdered his
Like,
coach
it was
on the
bad,
field?
but it wasn't that bad.
I think we're in the scenario where he the way he did it was not a good way to do it. But it's one of those things where you have to understand the moment of like obviously
Right.
tensions are high. Obviously it's okay to be frustrated and it's okay to be mad at your coach. I'm sure like this is something where every player and coach has this type of relationship and the fact that they won too. I don't think it's the end of I don't think it really matters. They're both two people who are incredibly driven to win. I get it. I don't think that's a problem. I just think he didn't have to just put his hands on him or something. I thought that was a little too far. But aside from that, it's two people in a very high stakes game. Two emotional. Of course, I would hope that Travis Kelce is upset
Yes.
that he was not on the
Right.
field for a play.
Yes.
That's perfectly fine in my book.
Do you know how many superstar players, especially receivers, tight ends, you could find with
Tom
almost
Brady did.
identical
And I'm the biggest Tom
instances of stuff like that
at the
happening?
time.
Right. Especially when you consider that Kelsey was so incredible down the stretch. Like, come on, give me a break. I get that y'all hate him for the Taylor Swift thing, but
Yeah,
it's,
and
I don't know.
honestly, I thought they did a good job too with the Taylor Swift and just keeping it on a bit of a DL. There wasn't. I think Davian said that she was shown 10 times. I didn't really notice it too much, and I was very critical about how often she was getting shoved down people's throats.
Yeah.
I actually thought this was pretty fine overall. I don't think we need to talk about this any further, just because it was what it was. Also, another thing too.
I think it was pretty good.
I just have to shout out the officiating. I think in society, people are so quick to point at the refs, and I think that I thought they did a good job. I didn't really feel like any of the calls were really absolutely horrendous. I didn't feel like they missed any horrendous calls. Obviously, last year there was a bit of controversy going against the Eagles, which I'm sure Theodore was more than happy about. But in general, I have no complaints
Yeah,
about the refs,
I would.
and I think
I would
anyone
agree
who's
with
blaming the refs is delusional.
Yep. All in all, I'm just like to tie it up. Very, very fun Super Bowl. Like one of the best I've ever seen. The pressure down the stretch, such critical moments. Like for Mahomes to go out there, that 4th and 1.
that. Yikes.
I was watching it with 2 diehard 49ers
Yeah.
fans, so they were
I
going
did as
through
well.
it. All
Yeah,
around
I think it was a
I had a
fun game
great
to
time
watch.
watching that game.
I wish I watched the Nickelodeon stream because I saw some clips of that and was like, dang, I wish I watched that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There were some good quotes that came out of that stream.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of good things. I saw some good videos too that came out of that. So that was a lot of people were saying that was low key better than the actual broadcast with Tony Romo, which
I mean Romo was okay.
Maybe it was, but
I'd like to see Greg.
I really like that idea too. And
Here's
yeah.
one thing on Romo, as someone who wants to be a broadcaster. That game end. First of all,
right, yeah.
Because I was watching over Jim Nance's call of that final moment. Because Nance is a guy who has struggled at recently in big moments.
Yeah.
Like you watch. I don't know if y'all remember San Diego State hits a buzzer beater.
Yeah.
To beat FAU,
bad, yeah.
and he had just.
I think he was. I think he was really good.
But I thought he was great all Super Bowl. Yeah. Nance was not given the chance by Romo to set up that final play call. Like if you watch the call of the final play of the game, he was scrambling. He was behind on the call. So Romo was talking too much towards the end. And then the touchdown scored. I've always been a believer, and I've been taught this by like teachers and broadcasters I've talked to, and I think it's the general consensus that fans agree. Whenever you have a massive moment like that, like a team just won the Super Bowl, you say what you need to say.
Yeah.
You finish your call, and then you shut up.
I didn't understand that from Romo.
You don't need to break down that final play.
It confused me, like in the house, because it was a touchdown, and then it wasn't like a big celebration or reaction. It was just like it's just like another touchdown. And you saw that also. It was also because of like what was happening on the field. Like you clearly saw Hardman was kind of confused. Like he just like caught it as if it's like another pass. But I 100% agree with it. Yeah.
He's like, I scored. Yeah. Yay, we have the lead. And then, yeah.
I think so.
I just thought that they failed in that moment to kind of capture what had happened. Because, look, and I as a broadcast, like as someone who wants to be a play-by-play guy, my goal was always to convey the full emotion of what is happening. But you got to know that nothing you can say in that moment is going to be more powerful than just the raw sound on the field. That's my only real critique there.
Yeah. And
all in all, I think
if we
great.
Yeah. If we look at the NFL season as a scope, though, what would you guys say about this season, how it went? Obviously, at the end of the day, I find it funny because I feel like very commonly throughout the year, there'll be upsets, there'll be ups, there'll be downs, and people will say, oh, this is going to be a crazy year, oh, watch out, like things are going to be very chaotic in playoff time. And not to be that guy and put myself on a pedestal, but sometimes it's just the two teams that are the most likely to make the Super Bowl. Even during a season of chaos, you still wind up with those two teams at the end, and I think it might have been a boring in comparison to how the season was going.
Honestly,
but that's normally how chaotic seasons
I'm disappointed
go, I feel
in the
like.
season. I'm just gonna say it wasn't the best NFL season of all time, by far. There was the injuries all the time.
Agreed.
There was the annoyance from Taylor Swift all the time, which again, it didn't ruin watching the game. It's just that following the sport, it was just very hard. You had the whole Josh Dobbs thing. That was super cool. Awesome story. Yeah, the DeVito kind of like Linsanity type moment.
Yeah.
No one's going to ever forget that. And those are memorable things. But overall, Kirk going down, Joe Burrow, all these injuries left and right. what could have been such a promising season, I think fell apart very quickly come by week 8, and that's
Uh-huh.
why the NFL, in some ways, the reason why the NFL had to shipped Taylor Swift was because of the injuries. It was because these games that at one point we thought were going to be super meaningful just ended up being dud games of, who's gonna get the number one pick, who's gonna get better draft positioning, some who's gonna get the wild card spot, but wild card spot didn't really matter against such juggernauts in the AFC and NFC.
Uh-huh. Let me say this because I agree. I thought this was one of the overall worst, like just the least into an NFL season I've been in a while. And sure,
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sure part of it is college and the Giants suck and all that, but still, I think one thing that we've been missing in
Yeah,
the NFL the past couple of years is a superpower, you know? And because we've just been so used to, and this applies for basically all three
yeah,
of us the whole time we've been watching football, like the Pats have been that team. And then Brady goes to Tampa, and it's like, oh, it's still fun because, oh, here's, the GOAT
we
trying
have
to
a villain.
win a Super Bowl somewhere else, and you're all these other fun players, and, oh, Joe Burrow's. And then this year, with how disappointing and like kind of just out of sync the Chiefs were during the regular season, we didn't really view them as any kind of a superpower. So I feel like there was a little
Yeah.
too much uncertainty. So what I would say is, because look, there's
Yeah,
so many great potential storylines for next year. So the fact that we'll be entering next season with the Chiefs as the clear Super Bowl favorite and superpower in the league, almost because they basically
yeah.
filled that Belichick Brady void as that team. I think that helps things out. I think you want to have a clear a clear team at top because then you also
Yeah.
get the whole
I
storyline
mean,
about who can dethrone the Chiefs and then you
And
just have
I
so
think
much stuff.
in
yeah.
Like you burrow
and I
back.
think another oh
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you can go
sorry.
ahead, Rob.
Yeah, so one other thing too, just to throw on, I think this year we kind of were able to pin, okay, the Niners are the best team in the NFC, the Ravens are the best team in the AFC, and obviously it didn't fully work out. The Chiefs obviously had something to say about that towards the end. But you kind of felt like you had a feeling or an indication of who was likely going to finish, who was going to be in the Super Bowl. And I just want to mention too, if you look at the NFC and just take some consideration here, Cowboys and Eagles, they're going to be good next year. I think we all can agree on that. Giants,
They'll be back. Yeah,
sorry, Theodore, I don't know, but the
They'll be
Lions,
back.
they're going to keep trending
Yeah.
up. The Packers, Jordan Love,
the
they'll
Jets
be
get Rodgers back.
probably better next year. They have a lot of young guys, a lot of nice contracts right now. The Vikings, Kirk
I
Cousins,
forgot
if he
about that.
returns full season, we don't know what the Vikings or Bears with Caleb Williams, we don't know what they'll both look like. The Falcons, please. Then you have Tampa Bay if they bring back Baker, that's still a decent team.
Yeah, I mean Seahawks need
Rams,
coaches.
Seahawks, two other teams
Yeah,
potentially that can make some noise. This year was the year for the Niners. This was the
Really
Niners'
was.
year,
Yeah.
really, in the NFC with the Eagles collapse, with the
you also
Cowboys
don't
being the
have salary cap
Cowboys.
issues,
You
which
don't
you
have the
won't
big
have
bad
this year.
Aaron
You have
Rodgers,
to
so
pay
you can own
Ayuk.
them again,
You're
although
going to
you
have
kind
to
of
pay
did.
Brock Purdy at some point,
Uh-huh.
and he's going to want a bag and a half. So you're starting to realize that a lot of these teams, what
Yeah.
we're starting to see a lot in the NFL is like teams bringing in a lot of like superpower players and trying to punch in that Super Bowl championship like the Rams did a few years ago, but it just doesn't always work out. We just saw the 49ers try it and kind of fail. You need to have a sustainable build, kind of like what the Chiefs have. It'll be interesting to see because a lot of these teams that we're seeing in the NFL are starting that rebuilding process with the Patriots, the Seahawks, the Titans in some ways. I could keep going with these teams, but it's gonna be a very interesting season next year because a lot of the old guard is
Yeah.
gone almost. You only have Rodgers, Wilson, maybe a few other players or coaches left. Um, Sean Payne and whatnot. But Belichick, as of now, is not on the team even, which is crazy. Seeing the NFL without Belichick or Pete Carroll on the sideline.
Yeah. Pete Carroll's not a coach. Yeah, it's crazy. Let me say one thing while we're bringing up, making noise and stories for next year. The fact that Cleveland did what they did with one of the most injured NFL rosters of all time.
Yeah.
That's got to be, I think, the favorite to win the North next year and probably a top 5 Super Bowl contender. And look, I'm going to say this, like, I don't put my opinion into it that much, but, like, I'm not going to be rooting for Deshaun Watson. But, like, I think you also have to realize that
He was
very solid at times last year, and he could absolutely still be an above average QB in this league. And with the weapons that team has, and the line, and the defense, and the coach,
I wonder what happens with Flacco.
that could really be something scary brewing there. There really are just
I'm excited.
so many storylines. I'm excited to see where guys sign. Off season,
And we
great.
will
Yeah.
And we will be here throughout the next
Yep.
couple of weeks and throughout the coming months and year leading into next NFL season, talking about free
6
agency,
months
talking
without
about any
football,
trades, talking about the draft. Hey guys, don't worry. I got you guys into hockey. It's hockey time. Let's go. We'll just ignore March Madness real quick. It's hockey time. Let's go. Things are going to be great when Connor Bedard returns, is what I tell myself every day. But that'll do it for this edition of the Benchwarmer Sports podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Obviously, Super Bowl was overall pretty good. NFL season's over now, but now we look to the draft. We look to the future in general. For Davian, for Theodore, I'm Raffi. Thank you again so much for watching.
Peace.
Have a great rest of your day. Have a good one.